Welcome to the first Urban Native Era podcast, episode 1. We had Joey Montoya on, CEO and founder of Urban Native Era. He talked about everything from his routine to how the brand shifted during the pandemic and how he started the brand. So hope you guys enjoy. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Urban Native Era podcast. First episode. It's been a little bit of a long time coming, but we'll definitely let you in on the process of this podcast coming together. My name's Hud Oberly. I'm the creative director of Urban Native Era. I'm Comanche, Osage, and Caddo from Oklahoma, and now live in beautiful Los Angeles. We have our guest today is Joey Montoya, founder, CEO of Urban Native Era. I think it's going to be a special episode. I think there's always a million questions for Joey when we do an Instagram Live or anything where there's a platform to ask Joey questions about owning Urban Native Era, his work ethic, his work routine, all that good stuff, which we're going to dive into too. But Joey, how about you introduce yourself a little bit?
Yeah, my name is Joey Montoya. I'm Lipon Apache from Texas, but I was born and raised in San Francisco, California. Went to San Jose State University for college. So I've been in Bay Area most of my life. Yeah. And then, started Urban Native Era when I was 19 at San Jose State University.
Nice.
Yep.
And what year was that?
That was in 2012.
Word.
So it's been about 7 years running the business.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's been a long time.
Nice. Well, so yeah, we're going to dive into a lot of stuff with Joey, but this is the first episode of the Urban Native Era podcast. And we started brainstorming this idea like last fall, when you first moved down to LA. So we're roommates. A little background. This is a special episode because it's quarantine season. We're in our apartment together, so we can do this podcast. But last fall, really brainstorming it a lot. We had an idea about it launching in March last month, but we even tackled on a lot of stuff on our own schedule. So we pushed it a little bit more because of just all this crazy stuff going on in the world. But the format in the future, we're rolling with the punches here. This one, the first episode's me and Joey. I'll be doing some solo shows, and then hopefully once some of these stay-at-home orders get lifted, we're gonna have some guests, and we're really excited about the guests. It's gonna be creatives, artists, entrepreneurs, just anyone kind of influential that we think that is beneficial for y'all to hear from. So that's going to be the format in the future. But till then, you got us. You got me. You got us. So it's going to be fun. We'll make it entertaining. It's another piece to our content variation across all platforms. So it's exciting. What do you see, Joey, for the podcast? How do you see that, like, once we get to the guest format, like, what can people like be excited about?
I think overall, just learning more about like what indigenous people are doing, and like non-indigenous folks are doing, like creative folks, like friends of ours that are really like pushing and leading in like music and activism and just in general overall. So just diving deeper into what they're doing and all that.
100%. Like I said, we're gonna have artists, creatives, entrepreneurs. Do you consider yourself those?
Yeah, it's been interesting trying to figure out what to call myself, because there's people who are just like, oh yeah, like you're an activist or you're an artist, you're an entrepreneur. And I think I'm moving more towards entrepreneur, and like, I consider myself an artist, but I think overall just creating stuff, and I love just to create. Whether it's like, brands or just art and design, just overall creating. So I kind of go with just like, not creator, but just entrepreneur is good.
And so with that entrepreneur label, you said you've told me in the past, you never planned to start a business or own a business like this.
Yeah, it kind of just, I saw a need for visibility of certain indigenous issues when I was a freshman in college. And it started off with this movement called I Don't Know More that started in Canada. And I saw this through social media, and I saw not really many mainstream media picking it up. And I like grabbed my Nikon camera and went to these like round dances, rallies that we would have in support of them, so yeah, I took photos and videos and put it on Facebook. So I had no clue about, like, I didn't know this was going to turn into a business. I didn't know it was going to turn into clothing, but I knew that there was a need for visibility of our issues and of Indigenous peoples, and how to really share that was through, for me, was design, and through design and through clothing. So that's how I kind of got into the clothing business.
Nice. And so, a lot of people ask you, how do you start a business, or a lot of like business related questions that, I think people assume you plan to have
Mm,
this brand started and maybe plan to be where it's at right now. But maybe give some more background on like how it became the apparel clothing design
mm,
content business.
yeah. So I think before going into that, I think talking about, like, I was a senior in high school, and I was working at a restaurant. It was like a diner in South City, which was my first like real job, and it was like a horrible experience. If you work in the restaurant business, like, it's really tough. And I was a prep cook, like, yeah, prep cook, and then also a busser, and then also um, a waiter. So I did those three things, and just the energy of this restaurant, like, I was not about, and it was like, it made me realize, like, I did not want to work for anybody. And um yeah, so like that was like, I think, the start of, like, yeah, I don't want to work for anybody. I don't like working for people. And I think I've always had like that mindset of, like, I just want to do what I want to do, you know.
When you say that, what I think people will be interested, what was the vibe that wasn't you didn't like about the restaurant?
um well, just really, I mean, it's a lot of things, but I think one of them is just like, I mean, I love fast pace and I love movement, and like
Mhm.
just going that. So that was like nice, but then just the coworkers of just like, um, like language stuff, and then the boss wasn't the best best boss out there as well. So it just, like, I realized then, where I was just like, I don't want to, yeah, I didn't want to work for anybody. And then I also realized that I didn't want to ask for permission to take time off. And I found that, like, really annoying, where it's like, oh, someone passed away, I have to ask for permission to, like, oh, can I get these days off?
Yeah.
Which of course they're going to give me those days off, but I just didn't really like having to ask for that. And then also just like, I want to, like, yeah, I just want to do what I want to do. So,
And I think that's something that I think when people ask like how'd you start your business, it actually stems from like that idea of like you realize you didn't like something and you
mhm,
like decide to change it.
yeah,
There wasn't like a hesitation, like
yeah,
you didn't like it, so you were gonna do something different rather than like stay in something you didn't like, trying to like
yeah.
muddle around with it, like figure out what you wanted to do. You
Yeah,
just did it.
but the see, and this is the thing, is like, I don't regret that at all, that experience, because
Mhm.
that experience led to, like, me wanting to create things, and I'm glad I was able to, like, learn that early on, that instead of having to kind of move, like, after college, of like trying to figure that out.
Yeah.
And out from that job, I was able, because I was living at home, I was in high school living at home, I was like, saved a lot of money. Well, a lot of money was like $2,000, which was a lot of money at the time.
Back in my day.
Yeah, a lot of money, 2 pennies. um, but yeah, so I saved a lot of, yeah, I saved money, and when I went to college, I, started to learn more about Indigenous issues, and then I found about the issue happening in Canada. So after that, I started to get into a lot more into design, and
Mhm.
using art and design as like a tool to really share these issues. And yeah, the first batch of teas were like pretty, like, they're pretty bad overall, but there was a lot of people who supported with those efforts. And um, yeah, just being in college. And I think one of the biggest takeaways as well, just like going throughout college, was I found myself really the only one doing what I was doing,
Hmm.
right? And at an early age.
Yeah, yeah. So I think that's something I want to touch on too, is like the value of starting early, like
Hmm.
starting at the age you did. And, you know, uh, I mean, I think people want to hear about that, but also people who may not be 19 anymore, um, to start a business, like whenever they like have that passion that maybe you had then.
Yeah. Well, I think a lot of people get jumbled with like, I need to plan out the next 5 years, which is not a bad thing.
Mm-hmm.
But I think we get stuck on perfection as well, and we want everything to be perfect. And for me, I kind of jumped into it at an interesting moment where I was like, I need to really share these issues. How can I do this? How can I like fund like these travels, like sell T-shirts, and then use T-shirts to, um, you know, spread awareness as well. But um, yeah, I think overall it's like, um, yeah, like for me, starting at a young age was good, and I think it's good to start at a young age if you can, or just start when you feel like the time is right. Um, yeah, I think that's just really important. But like there's people who start businesses at 30 years old, 35. So it's just like really where you're at. But I think for me, starting in college, like I was able to utilize um, all these connections and people, yeah, connections and like people I was meeting, people I met in clubs and organizations to really push the brand. And a lot of people were really supportive throughout my college years.
That's interesting about the like different organizations and stuff you're involved with. So, just to quickly stay on that topic with graduation coming up, and it's an interesting
Hmm.
year for graduates, but talk about like your mindset when you graduated, and like if you have anything for graduates listening, or there's people that know a graduate.
Yeah. Well, actually, I was recalling this time early this morning while I was out running about. So at San Jose State, there wasn't a Native American student organization. So I actually started that while I started Urban Native Era as well.
Mm-hmm.
So starting that was um, just me by myself, but we needed like other members to join. And then I slowly started to meet more Native people on campus. And I was remembering like just myself and my friend Garrett. We rented a room out and we are just like rented a room to like meet for meetings, and it was just us two, and we just like, yep, this is it. So it was like us two, kind of like trying to figure things out and like how we're gonna go about it. But it took like 4 or 5 years for us to really build it and gain like find other Native students on campus. Gain support from the school. But yeah, so I spent about 5 years in college. It took me 3 years to figure out what I wanted to do, and like I think I just found passion for advertising as well as spreading awareness about Indigenous issues, and really, yeah, I really kind of fell in love with that. And when it came to graduation, I felt like I was ready to really push the brand. So I graduated in 2017 from San Jose State, and I was running the business. And I remember exactly like I graduated, and then I remember having all my um, like bed, like all my stuff that I was moving, like all in my car, and I just drove to like San Francisco. I dropped it off there, and I just took off. Like I just went to like my friend Kalina. She was going to Seattle, and she was driving up there. So I just like hopped in her car. I was like, I'm out. So I've kind of like, yeah, and for me, spending that time of like really building the brand, I was able to do that. But a lot of people um, wait for college, and they use college. I mean, like they study and like wait for after college to find a job. So that's like a different, I think, a different perspective just for myself and other entrepreneurs or artists that really want to go into um, go into like running their own business. It's like starting early and building those connections and building those relationships where they're able to really excel after college and kind of go for what they want. And there's people that I worked with like 3 to 5 years ago, and they're still reaching out to me now about design stuff.
Mhm.
And while I was running the business throughout San Jose State, I was also doing design work and doing video work. So that stuff kind of like helped with running the business, because I was able to
Oh yeah.
do those side jobs to kind of push that.
Right. I think that's the graphic design and understanding of the importance of content and just marketing and selling yourself or selling a brand is like essential to having a successful business. So sticking on advertising, you've mentioned that well you said your roots in this are advertising, and you know you have a vision for advertising within Indian country to get on a certain level of like these like Goliath of like master marketers like Apple or some of the other huge brands that really master it and have a certain level of quality to it.
Mhm.
So how does Indian country or other groups of people get to that like level? Like
Mhm.
what's the path? Is it mentorship? Is it mentorship with those Goliaths, quote unquote? Is it like what how does that level of quality get there within any country?
Well, I think first what folks need to realize is like how powerful marketing and advertising is. And I feel like, we say that, but there's no act on it. And I think looking at your budgets overall and like how much money are you spending on advertising,
Mhm.
and you know, I, I think that's something really to take into consideration, and also just like getting to this level of like how Apple really does advertising marketing. Like I haven't seen any of that in Indian country. I think the closest I was just thinking of was in film, Taika
Mhm.
and like Sterling Harjo. Like I'm really curious to see how they just create and really get into that kind of like stuff. But other than that, like in businesses and advertising, like I
Mhm.
haven't seen anything that just like really just spot on.
And so how do we get there? So we live in LA, so there's a lot of entertainment people around, and there's this native actress that I was just having similar conversation with, and this is her perspective, but she said that like she looks up to and takes advice from people who have made it, and this like her definition of made it was like A-list
Mm,
level people, and that was her idea of success, which I know that it's a really loaded definition
yeah.
of that word, but like is that required to get that mentorship and knowledge from those higher level advertisers, or what's the path?
Yeah. Well, for me, I mean, yeah, I went to school for advertising, and I learned like, like those last 2 years of school, I learned a lot. And then I learned a lot, like even more with just the internships I went into. Like I learned about branding and then design, and I'm really grateful for those experiences. So it's and then a lot of YouTube stuff too. So just
Mhm.
like learning from those things, but also just training your eye. Like, so if you're going from like an artist perspective or design perspective and you're early on, I feel like just training your eye and really paying attention to what is being produced by even all these big folks, like what's being produced by Apple, what's being produced by, um, like all these other ones.
Mhm.
And I think just really paying attention to that, because you're able just to really learn. I'm like, okay, well, like how did they like how quickly did that like box or Apple come up, or like motion up if you're working in like Adobe After Effects or doing motion stuff. So you just pay attention to like the movements, the coloring, the spacing, um, and you kind of just train your eye to really kind of find that look that you're satisfied with, but also it's industry standard.
Mhm.
And yeah, and like I said, like there's a few companies that have like stepped their game up and that I've seen in Indian country, but there's still like overall like organizations still I feel like we're lacking in that in some ways.
And I think this conversation applies to not just advertising, but different industries where
Yeah.
there's like a mainstream, big players in the mainstream that
Hmm.
they have the resources, they have the cream of the crop of their employees and like who they even like poach from other competitors. Like they're building a master team of those people
Hmm.
that are experts in that field. So. Well, good. I was just curious your thoughts on the path to getting to that
Yeah.
level. So just training, like having a high standard for
Hmm.
your work and whatever, like I said, whatever field it is. But and I think marketing yourself as that so that you maybe do get picked up by a big player and learn, or
Hmm. Hmm.
get some
Well,
recognition and get some
yeah.
eyes on your
And
stuff.
that's the thing too. Like I had a good amount of years where I really learned and trained. I made mistakes. Trained my eye, and I think 2 years ago when I picked up like my camera, like my new camera, I was able to kind of really like train my eye even more in like photography. So it's just really, yeah, training your eye, but it's also like, so there's the artist side of things, but there's also like the organization side of things where are they willing to, make funding for marketing, like high budget funding for marketing, and hire someone to really come out with like a solid marketing plan? Like I'm talking about like running ads, on TikTok,
Mhm.
on LinkedIn, and all these other things.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's like knowing the key to the advertising, getting eyes on thing is just like being everywhere,
Hmm.
doing everything, tripling down on all that stuff if you have the resources. And, you don't need a ton of resources these days to be able to make stuff because
Yeah.
everyone, no, a lot of people have iPhones and they're high quality
Yeah.
these days. So it's available. But yeah, I think that was a good conversation. Hey everybody, thank you guys for listening so far. We're taking a little pause. If you guys aren't subscribed yet, please subscribe on whichever platform you're listening to us on. In the second half, we'll have Joey talking about his daily routine. We'll be talking about how the brand shifted during the pandemic. So here we go. We got Joey here. He's been sharing all about his background, his the beginnings of Urban Native Era, which we may have first time listeners, but Urban Native Era is a brand that specializes in clothing design and content to raise awareness about Indigenous issues. So if you didn't know, if you haven't heard the brand, if you're a first time listener, you stumbled upon us, a friend recommended you, that's what we do. And this is one of those content pieces. So we're happy you're here. So fast forward from, I think we left off you graduating, which was 5 years ago? No, sorry,
Jeez.
3 years ago. So fast forward to now, because this is a crazy time, and I think it's important for us to touch on our flexibility, our adjustments to the pandemic that's going on. So, do you start with about you or the brand? Let you choose.
um, I guess the brand.
Yeah, okay, I think that's a good idea. So, how did you like? Did you see? Okay, let me start over for a second. Let me back up a little bit. In March, we had a Urban Native Era experience planned, and about ready to kick off. Honestly, 2 days before,
Hmm.
the whole preparation, we were full set on. 3 days before, we were full set on doing the whole thing, and then the next night, we get some cancellations from certain people, and things have to change. Did you know the magnitude, if anyone did, of what was happening, and or did you see it as like we just got to change this one thing and it's going to kind of stay normal,
Um,
stay level?
no, so when everything was happening, and like people started to drop out that were gonna show up, I was like, okay, like, we have to do something. And although like it wasn't ideal for us to really switch because of we invested a lot of money, we invested our time, our effort, all these things. So ideally we yeah, I didn't want to, but make that change. But we, thought about just the situation at hand. Like we didn't know what was happening, but we knew like we had to, before it was called social distancing, we had to do that.
Yeah, yeah. And so our Urban Native Air experience was like a glorified pop up that
Hmm.
unfortunately didn't happen. We changed it into a 7 hour live show. Did a lot of things. Had some
Yeah.
guests. Ray Sargosa
Yeah.
performed at
And
the
we
end.
did it in Los Angeles at the location that was
Right.
supposed to be where the event was.
Yeah. So we made the most of we stretched our dollars.
Yeah.
We hung up our neon sign, all that good stuff. It's actually on our YouTube if you want to check it out. Almost the whole show,
Yeah.
all 7 hours. So if you have time, if you want to listen to something in the background, that's on YouTube. So that happens, and then it starts to come out that this is going to be a prolonged thing. And once that starts to come out, where did your mind go, and kind of like what was going on in your head?
So well, first I was thinking about the experience for sure and like the 7 hour live, like switching it to a 7 hour live show, which you were like really excited about. And I was like, okay, like let's do this 7 hour live show. But my thing was like, we bought all these things and I'm like, now I have to put them all in my apartment or my room and have,
Yeah.
all this stuff. And then, but we were also dropping a whole spring collection.
Mm.
So I think that was where I was like, I don't know what's happening or what our business is going to look like. But I was like, we need to drop this collection this weekend.
Yeah.
Like on our 7 hour live show that day, we're going to drop it a week before because I did not want to wait and like, however the situation was going to go. I didn't know how our consumers were going to continue to be, and so I really wanted to just get it out. And I told you that. I mean, you were for it. I would say it was kind of just like a shift in just some content stuff, but we managed to do that. So like that was like my main thing, and I was like, okay, like we did good. We did good on sales and like just reaching out to the folks we wanted to reach and all that. So I was like, okay, now that after that week of the 7 hour live show, I started to really think about the bigger picture, right? Of
Mm-hmm.
like, how long is this gonna go on for? How are like my family who go on like these powwow during the powwow season, like all these events, like how are they gonna be able to sustain themselves? And then also just thinking about, we have like an Indigenous Red Market every first Sunday of the month in Oakland.
Mm-hmm.
So I was also thinking about them, and I really wanted to see like how we were gonna shift to online. And I'm actually like thankful, but also like it was an interesting time to bring you on, but thankful that you did come on at that time because I don't know, like I would probably be able to like shift gears, but I think just how much content we had to put out in those first 2 or 3 weeks of quarantine. I think that was a really pivotal moment for us to really like, okay, like this is how it's gonna be. Like, let's just shift all gears. Like, we canceled our trips, canceled flights,
Yeah.
all these plans that we had throughout the year. Just like we were just like done, which I'm okay with because I think at the beginning of the year I was like, I'm not gonna travel outside the country. Which I like. We went to Canada for a shoot in February, but besides that, it's like stay. Like I told myself I was gonna stay like relatively in the state. So now I'm like kind of forced to.
Well, yeah, I think what you were saying about the content was like we like tripled down on like the content we were putting
Hmm.
out those first couple weeks, like, and I think that was a statement to say like we're still here, and it was content that was not so serious. It was
Hmm.
like fun. It was like kind of an escape, but also like really engaging. Like it was made for people to engage
Yeah.
with those graphics, with us as
Hmm.
a brand, and like them as our community.
Yeah, and I think for us as well, it's like I want to genuinely check in and see how our community is doing. How are
Mm.
we dealing with it? Like, what resources can we direct them to, or entertainment we can direct them to kind of get a feel better throughout the day because everyone's going through this experience differently.
Mhm.
So I think with that, it's like how can we bring joy to it, and like even we're throwing some like TikTok stuff that we've done or we did the past 2 weeks like
Mhm.
on Instagram and on Facebook to kind of like encourage some more light stuff.
Yeah. And so, you you mentioned that you were thinking a lot about the vendors that travel that don't have an online as much of an online presence for their
Mm-hmm.
sales, like how they were going to sustain. And you mentioned Indigenous Red Market, which I remember you were pretty like
Yeah.
you didn't want to cancel that at all.
Um,
The first one, like you were, we were, or no, yeah, you were very hesitant, and but ultimately made the decision to. But um what about what like more about like just your thoughts on like those people that are vending in person and like how it affected you to like think about them?
yeah. Well, I just thought about just how, like they rely on these events. So my first thing was like we need to get them to jump on social media if they're not already on it. And I think with a lot of like our communities, it's that they're not like prevalently on it. And like some are, on Instagram and on Facebook, like they sell their jewelry, but they're not like on it how like we are on it, you
Mhm.
know? Um, so it's like I was trying to figure out like how do we create like this like online catalog of all these vendors that people can support. So like that people can support, and like with that, I've noticed, and I think this is where um, I was like, I kind of like relieved, where it was like, people want to support still, and people can support through this time, and especially like small businesses. Like I think that's like where I was really like thrilled to see is where like people were reaching out, and it kind of like I was like, okay, like it doesn't have to be me creating all these things for our communities. Like our communities are like are strong first of
Mhm.
all, and then we also like they're also like want to support, and other people are supporting. So I think that kind of like relieved me a lot.
Mhm.
Um, but yeah, my mind jumped to all that, and I'm still working on some levels too to kind of help certain people out with just strategy and creating content and really like how to move it.
Mhm. And so that, and I want to segue that into like your personal um experience with the pandemic, and because like that's the stuff that like was really on your mind a lot,
Mm-hmm.
and was what it was like kept you up, would you say?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, thinking about that. So like, and it's interesting too because we moved right before the urban Air experience, and so it was a new living environment. Um, so talk about like those first couple weeks, probably a combination of that and the pandemic, but like how like what your routine was like, and
Yeah.
kind of what when you realized like you needed to get something set in stone for your routine.
Yeah. So for the past like year or two, I've been usually just traveling and like jumping back and forth. So moving to LA and like settling into a spot, I thought I was going to be able to move, like travel still, right?
Mhm.
So when we moved like, yeah, during a time where we had to kind of stay indoors. And I think just that move in itself, um, which, like I never in the past, like past 5 years, 6 years, had trouble sleeping. And so I think it was a part of the move, and then part of like all like what was happening with this pandemic, where yeah, I was like waking up around 11 p.m. or 1 p.m., 2 p.m., and just like not being able to sleep. I pretty much have like a night terrors, um, and just not wouldn't be able to sleep. So I just end up like working or um, yeah, and doing that. So that was like a really interesting time. So I spent like the first week of like I guess quarantine when that officially happened, like really thinking about um, like a lot of things like going on in my head, and I was like I need to change things up. I was like, when this happened, I went to go to the grocery store, and like I remember you texting me, and like, yo, I think we should go get groceries. And this whole like panic mode went to me, and I went to the store, and like I grabbed like stuff that I would never get. So I grabbed like Pop Tarts and just junk food. So I think that would also contributed to not being able to sleep, and like just like a lot of things contributing to that. Um, but for after that week, I was like, all right, like I can't do this for the next 2 or 3 weeks. So like I really, one, I need to finish all this junk food, and then two, I need to set a routine for myself. And you know me, and like a lot of people see this on my Instagram, but I wake up really early in the morning to get stuff done, and I haven't done that in a while. Usually, I wake up at 4, but in the past, I've been waking up like at 6. Um, in the morning. So yeah, so I kind of set a routine for myself of like 4 o'clock, I'm gonna wake up and then I'm gonna work until 7. And then at 7 o'clock, I'm gonna go for a run, and then 7:30, I come back, change and get ready, and then 8 o'clock we'll have our like daily meetings that we have.
Mhm.
So I think setting that routine really kind of helped me get back on track. And then once I finished the junk food, I was able to like cook. Yeah, I've been cooking more for myself, and if you follow me too, I've been cooking a lot of omelets. And it's like, yeah, just been cooking because that kind of gets my mind off things as well. But yeah, so like just like kind of setting that routine, and then after that, I deal with like daily things and all that stuff.
And I think that's something interesting that I've kind of caught myself thinking about is like we cook like all our meals.
Hmm.
And like I was talking to my dad and he was talking about how he had ordered in like Postmates or something, and I was like realized like wow, we really like literally cook every meal. Like we
Hmm.
rarely order something in. And I think that's something that people don't think about too, is how that affects
Yeah.
your sleeping or your attitude or like your productivity, you
Hmm.
know? And or maybe contributing to like unproductivity.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, definitely. I for sure think that like um yeah, I think working out too, and like when I wasn't working out, even prior to that, like I wasn't working out for like 2 months.
Mhm.
And I was like, yeah, I need to do something. And since the gym closed,
Yeah.
we didn't end up going to the gym anymore. So like I had to run. And I think that, just working out, like it helps you out, helps your mood a little bit too. So gets the blood flowing. And yeah, so I've been up actually, so I changed my routine a little bit in the past 2 or 3 days, but I've been waking up around 2 in the morning to get stuff done, just because there's a lot of stuff that I need to do, and I just kind of want to save time for design.
Mhm. And then what time do you go to bed?
I try to go to bed. Well, yeah, like latest by 9 p.m. But I finally set an alarm to set a reminder like, yo, go to bed, or like get ready for bed at 8:45. But
Uh,
yeah, like I really just like yeah, so I go to bed pretty early, and then yeah, I rarely wake up during the night. There's some nights where I kind of just wake up and I'm like, all right, time to time to work.
Guess it's time to work.
Yeah.
And people ask you a lot, like, um, or they just don't ask you. They just bring up like, "Dang, I could never wake up at 4 a.m."
Yeah.
Like, do you think that's needed to, be an entrepreneur, be successful, like have the time in the day? But like that, and then you've mentioned like you wouldn't be getting up that early if it wasn't for what you're doing.
Yeah. Well, so I started thinking about that a lot more, and I think I told you this before, but I feel like it's like a nostalgic thing where when I was a kid, we used to get up really early to go on like a 3 hour drive to go visit my brothers up near Chico, and it was like 5 in the morning. But I used to love that feeling of like waking up early, seeing the sunrise, and like it's like a whole different feeling of peace and calm. So I think that's like one of the reasons why I wake up early as well. And then yeah, and just like having, for me, like it's the morning, but for other people it's like they're night owls, like they get a lot of their work done at night, and that's like totally fine as well. I think as long as you're doing something that you're happy and passionate about, it doesn't matter what time you wake up or what time you go to bed,
Mhm.
as long as you're happy and you're passionate about it. And I think passion will be like the driving force for whatever you're doing. And like I said before, it's like I didn't like um, asking for time off, and a big part of um, what I look at when I'm doing the work is am I happy with this, like this lifestyle? Am I upset with it? And am I still passionate about it? And if I'm not passionate about it, I'm gonna shift and move. and do something different, or do something that kind of like I want to do.
Mhm.
Because if I'm not passionate about it, then I'm gonna wake up every day and just not be, not put in that work for it.
Mhm.
So yeah, that's kind of like my mentality of things. But I think passion is like what really, kept me moving all these years.
Nice. I think that's super true as well, and hopefully, you know, I think Joey's lucky to find that passion at a certain age, but just testing things and exploring
Hmm.
different things that you're interested in, but kind of diving deeper and to see if you really like that and could
Well,
make the time for it.
yeah, and that's the things. Like people ask me, like just recently, a friend texted me. He was like, "Yo, dude, like, did you know in college or in high school that you're gonna do this?" And I'm like, "No, I did not know at all." And even in college, like I spent 3 years, like learning about sociology, like learning, like taking all the photography classes, and just trying to figure out like where, like what I wanted to do. And then even like the college, like I didn't know I wanted to go to San Jose State. Like
Mhm.
I was like, oh, it's close enough to home. It's an hour away from San Francisco,
Mhm.
so I can drive back if I need to. But I just kind of like went there. A lot of my other friends were going there as well. So, and then it was really diverse overall. But it's kind of like, yeah, it's definitely something for sure.
Yeah, there's that you are lucky. I think that your passion was found at that time in your life. So, so for the last little bit, what I'm gonna ask some questions. I'm gonna ask some questions. I'm gonna ask some questions. Um, what is your? I think since I've come on, your duties have changed a little bit. You're not
Mm.
doing, a lot of things, everything.
Yeah.
If you didn't know, Joey was a one man show up until like fall when Matt came on.
Yeah, yeah. So Matt came on officially in fall, but as like part time, and Matt, if you don't know Matt, he's one shipping out your packages. um, but yeah, so he came on a full time or part time in the fall, and then he also helped like during events prior.
Right, right. So you were still doing like all the content creation,
Yeah.
all the like the branding, all that stuff. And then now I'm on and I'm creative director, so like it's more marketing, content,
Mm-hmm.
ideation and creation. I think we work pretty well on like, if I need to edit a video, like I can just take care of that while you do something else.
Mm-hmm.
So what now with this current situation, what's your favorite thing of the day and your least favorite thing of the day as Joey Montoya, the business owner of Urban Native Era?
um, my favorite time of the day, I think it's just the morning. Um, yeah, early in the morning because I can just work without being messaged or emailed. um, yeah, and my least part of the day, I would say, is just, I mean, yeah, like staying indoors is like difficult, um, but it's not all bad. I don't know what I would say at least favorite.
But what about like as
What do you
far
think?
as the business, like because I
Oh,
think there's people out there that like they
oh
want to
yeah, yeah.
know
You mean like
like
the little tasks that I have to do?
yeah, like relatable, like
Yeah.
not everything's perfect and fun all the time.
Yeah. Well, I respond to a lot of customers online,
Mhm.
which is not like, boring. It just like takes my attention away from like other work. Um, but yeah, like I have to, make sure people get paid and like payroll stuff, like these
Mhm.
little like business things that usually I don't show too much of. And then, um, yeah, just like, yeah, that's,
Well, I think on the customer service thing, it's you have a prior like a value of like getting back to people quickly, and
yeah,
so that is that's that thing that you do like have a value on that and it's important to you, but like you're talking about as far as like you may be in the middle of designing a graphic or something like
yeah,
it takes your attention away
yeah.
that like I guess can be a thorn in the side or something.
Yeah, like it's something that I'm just like, okay, I got to do and then get back to my work. But
Yeah.
yeah. And we've been having like a lot of meetings too, so it's like meeting like every hour. I feel
Yeah.
like so we're just trying to feel the groove for it, but yeah, just taking my attention away from like work that I'm just trying to do. Um, but that's just part of it, and I think prior to it all, like, I've been doing pretty much everything with the help of like some friends along the way that want to lend their time.
Mhm.
But, I'm super glad that you hopped on as well, because like last year, I think I was, or yeah, last year I was like, man, I don't know if I can like do this by myself, because it's a lot of work, and especially when like the past 2 years they've been really like growth years.
Mm.
I mean, we've always been growing. Like the business always been like increasing, but last 2 years like it jumped to like a lot of work. And I think in order for us to like grow even more, like I needed to bring someone else on and delegate work
Mm.
to you and to other people. So I think that's definitely something where I was like able to hone in and focus on like, branding stuff that we talked about, and like just little things that I've always wanted to do, but never made the time throughout the day because I've had all these other tasks that I had to do.
Yeah. And even now, like I mentioned earlier in the podcast, like we really kind of even increased the amount of production of content we're doing. So
Yeah.
even now it's like it feels like a lot and it's like hard to get to everything.
Yeah.
But it's just about priorities. And I think people out there that, are looking from the outside in, or and even if they're business owners or not, like we're still getting a groove down to like he said, like our meetings and like what our daily schedules are, and it's not smooth as butter all the
Yeah,
time.
and yeah, and that's like a thing too. It's like I'm learning to figure out like how HUD is work, how he works, and I think he's doing the same like how I kind of work, because yeah, I've been doing it for like 6 or 7 years by myself. To kind of like switch that over and work with someone else like in a completely different way is definitely interesting. Like doing meetings and like all these other things that we kind of set throughout the past month since you
Mhm.
came on.
Yeah, it's definitely an interesting experience and I think super valuable in the end, but we're doing our best. We're doing our best. Um and so you you've mentioned that like you've kind of been going in front of the camera a little bit more.
hmm
As far even like personal stuff with the brand since the team has grown. Um talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, well, one, I like started a vlog,
Yeah.
which is
Moved to LA apparently.
yeah, when you move to LA, it's like you gotta create a vlog. I started a vlog, and that's just like something where like I want to just share more insight of like some of the things that I'm kind of doing and going through. For anyone who's just really wants to learn. But yeah, it's like I kind of felt like I needed to get more in front of the camera. I think just building also my personal brand in itself, with building the brand, and now we're like doing TikToks and all that fun stuff, which like it's good. It's like one of the things that I talk about when I go speak to universities is like stepping out of your comfort zone.
Mhm.
So this is like a part of stepping out of your comfort zone in order to really engage with our audience different, show who's behind the scenes.
Mhm. Yeah, and I think I've seen your growth in that like comfortability on being in front of the camera through the vlogs and even through this podcast. So I think we're all growing here during during this crazy time. Well, that's about it. What you're well, where can people see you in front of the camera?
Right here. No, yeah, Joey Montoya, Joey with two Y's, Montoya, on Instagram, TikTok. Just type in Joey Montoya on YouTube and I come up. But yeah, that's pretty much where people can find me. And like even extending, like if you're listening to this and like you're, want to start, um, something but still like confused or don't know where to go, like feel free to reach out. DM me. Let me know if you listen to this and if this wasn't even insightful.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah.
Yeah, message us or message Urban Native Era. Let us know you listened. I think this is a good, solid first episode of Urban Native Era podcast.
Oh man.
I'm excited for
Yeah, it's
I
gonna.
mean, it's the same day every week, um,
Yeah.
till the end of time.
Yeah. Yeah, it's gonna be good. I think it'll be, just different way to engage with our audience, and I just hope it brings value to everyone, or like even laughter or whatever, like some type of joy or insight.
100%. I
Yeah.
agree. This is your spot for laughter and happiness during this crazy time and even after it. So thank you guys for listening or watching, and stay tuned for the next episode. Peace.